How can AI transform the role of the office or business administrator? From efficient scheduling to better expense management, let's explore how AI can be the ultimate assistant for administrators. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye. I'm the Chief AI Officer with 0to60.ai, and I'm joined by always my co-founder and co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. Today we're talking about, it's part of our AI series for industry. It's specifically AI for the administrator.
You know what, Carl, this is an important topic because, office and business administrators are the backbone of any organization. And by empowering them with AI, businesses can streamline processes, reduce costs, and create a more productive workplace.
You know, I think like a lot of people kind of view AI as, hey, these really cool things like digital assistants for our customers. We're going to do all these cool things for external use. But I think where AI is the most effective today, and we always talk about the 10 to 40%, how do you become more efficient, increase productivity, decrease the mundane, decrease the repetitive tasks. Well, administrators face this day in, day out, right? They have to do the exact same thing, whatever that may be: payroll, expenses, data entry, communications, all the different tasks. And depending on the size of your business or even just your role, that administrator might be doing so many different things that AI could potentially help them with. And we've seen those administrators heavily overworked because they have to do all these different things for all these either different people, processes. That think about what AI could potentially do for them.
You know what? And they're literally the backbone of any organization. I've been in business for 30 years, and I'm the guy that goes out and comes up with these great big ideas, and I come back to the office, and it's the team, the administrative team, the ones that are very organized, that make it all happen. So there is, like, you're right. I haven't seen anybody who does administrative work that has a lack of tasks to get done. And you're right, AI can step up in so many different ways. And we've got a number of them here that we have listed to kind of talk about. And the first one is AI for scheduling and calendar management. I think that just that in itself, when you talk about scheduling customer inquiries, customer callbacks, meetings for executives, appointments, it can be complex, and you've got so many moving parts. And I think that if integrated properly, AI can make such a huge difference.
And even something like, it doesn't have to be external too. Let's say you're managing a calendar for multiple people, right? Even though you have the ability to change and change those things, one of the things that you could do from an AI automation perspective is, based on the meeting with the person, you could kick off an automation to automatically research that person, that topic, and automatically create the agenda for those meetings, right? Because usually those meetings have some sort of briefing, some sort of precursor or something that lets people know, oh, this is what this meeting about, here's the agenda, here's the things. So imagine an automation that, when those meetings are set, they automatically kick off, creates a draft agenda, human in the loop, review the agenda, then gets sent out. But even after the meeting's done, what is the take? We love this. You record the meetings online, in person, and then run it through another automation where it summarizes it, extracts the key actions, what are the next steps, and then you can trigger another automation from that, which maybe sends an email, sends notices, whatever, puts it in Slack, sets up reminders to follow up, make sure the tasks or things are done, or maybe set up a new meeting. Because we've seen that, although this is kind of why we're entrepreneurs, we just hate having a meeting to set up another meeting to talk about that meeting.
You know what? The funny thing is I don't know where it came to booking 1 hour meetings. I have never been in a 1 hour meeting that took 1 hour. You get to the fact, if you have a set agenda, you know what you need to get in and get out and do, you can generally get it done in 10 or 15 minutes, but people want to talk and waste time. And part of it is, I think that, again, that meetings aren't all organized. You and I practice what we preach. We have a tool that records all of our meetings. We come in with agenda items. We meet, we talk, we discuss. Our AI gives us a summary. And then the nice thing is that if you're having weekly meeting, even internal meetings with teams, you can come in with an agenda. Everybody knows what's on the docket to talk about. Get in, get out. If you can turn 1 hour meetings into 15-minute updates and you're getting the same amount of work done and you can use AI to be more efficient with that, and I know there's people out there that love to talk and talk and talk, um, but it's really inefficient and AI can definitely step in and help.
I think though you can probably cut off a lot of those meetings because it's that first 5 minutes of small talk, but it's sort of awkward. It's awkward small talk for people who don't regularly talk or meet with each other. So it's like, hey, how are you doing? How's the weather? And it's just kind of weird. It's like, what are you doing this weekend? Or and that gets like, and it's, I guess it's polite, and maybe this is a tangent, but it's like, really, can we just? I'm the person who's like, hey, let's get right to it, versus the forced, hey, how are you? It's like, you know what? I just want to get
But you
into
know
it,
what? It's
man.
funny, with this podcast. I mean, our podcast, we keep to 20 minutes. So there's some substance here.
Yes.
You and I always have this conversation.
Yeah.
Like these guys that do 3 hour podcasts, like my attention span is too short. And I know there's probably people that have probably logged off of this podcast already because their attention span is short. I listen to podcasts at 1.5 speed,
Yep.
sometimes 1.2, because I'm like, just get to the point, give me
Yeah.
the information and let us move on. So
Yeah.
anyways, maybe we talked enough about AI for scheduling. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
We have your expense and budget management. And again, I think that there's such a huge efficiency for administrators in this aspect. I mean, there's so many details when you've got, whether you're budgeting, from an accounting standpoint or whether you're creating budgets for projects for clients, there's so many opportunities for AI here.
I think like even if when we look at expenses, right? Because you have a bunch of people probably submitting expenses, and then you have to coordinate that, and then whether it's put it in the right folder, make sure it's entered in a spreadsheet somewhere, and then how is that expense report connected to the budget, and then how do you get people to pay the expenses? So I would nearly guarantee there are repetitive things that you do, and can AI remove that 10 to 40%, right? There's tools like GPT for Sheets, Excel tools, numerous sheets that can connect to your budgeting. Because I guarantee most businesses, no matter what CRM tool they have or process, there is an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, some way, especially administrators who are using it. So why don't you connect AI to that and see if you can do an automation where you drop the expense into, let's say, a Google Doc, and you know even the chat GPT or an AI assistant, using their API, can probably, what we call an OCR is review that receipt, whether it's physical or a picture, and immediately extract all the information and then upload it into a spreadsheet. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that you can easily it's a drag and drop. Sure, it takes a little bit of time to build, but once you have that built, drag drop, it immediately fills out the spreadsheet, and you just do a quick check, right? But instead of you having to input it manually, you can just drag and drop and it just automatically puts it in. Let's say you do 20 of these, it's done.
Yeah. I think the other thing, the missing part here too, is that if you can get rid of those basic redundant tasks when it comes to expenses and budgeting, you can then take your time and also use AI for doing analysis. I mean, I was in the video business for 30 years and we had budgets for clients, we had expenses coming in. We never had the time to actually go back and analyze budgets as to kind of see where our efficiencies are, where our profit margins are, where we're making money, where we're losing money, because it was too complex. It just was too time consuming. Well, if we can get rid of some of those redundant tasks like cross-checking invoices to expenses in the budget and take AI to another level and use it to analyze projects, or take the last 50 projects we've done and do an analysis to kind of figure out where our efficiencies are, where we're making all our money, that's where AI can step in and again, help improve the bottom line and improve your return on investment.
I think too, there's so many, like, I'm going to skip over number 3 because I think we could talk about that for a second, but I want to, because number 2 and number 4, data entry and document management, are so related. Because let's go back to budget management. So you have your expenses, you fill out a sheet, it fills out a Google sheet. I guarantee there's probably another sheet somewhere with a full budget amount. So if you can potentially automate, think about the hours you would save. Instead of taking, let's say, 20 expenses, manually inputting them into a spreadsheet, then taking that and then having to transfer the totals or analysis into another spreadsheet. Could you manually or automatically save yourself 40 to 50, 10 to 40% of that entire task. Instead of you again spending 2 to 4 hours doing it half your day, why don't it, after you've built it, can it do it in less than 2, 3, 4 minutes? Well, right. And you don't have to look forward. You can just look forward to dragging and dropping these things into a folder.
It's huge. I think, and I mean, number three that you had here was streamlined communication. And I think that in such a number of ways as well plays into this when you talk about responding to customer inquiries. But again, even a lot of admin people are faced with, you know, doing things like developing communications, like developing a policy, writing communications for employees, developing manuals. There's so many other things that are out there. If you can go from a marketing standpoint where you're having to, come up with social media posts, there's so many even simple tasks that can be used from an administrative standpoint that people don't even understand what's capable of. It's once you start to take a look at it, and we find that all the time, right? When we come into organizations and we start to take a look at, communications, data entry, analysis, there's a ton of opportunities that people don't even realize.
I think when you talk about communications too, I was thinking there are a lot of ways that, from a automation, let's talk about automations first, right? Drafting emails, drafting messages. Well, our favorite is to, hey, why don't you record said meeting, said whatever the event was, and then set up an automation where it takes that meeting and drafts whatever from that, whether it's an email, messaging, briefing documents. You take that, because I think this is where the most underrated use right now is essentially recording yourself, recording any type of meeting, recording, and then leveraging those recordings for other purposes. So that's one. The second piece is we talk about digital assistants. The amount of time that administrators have to answer the most repetitive questions, not just from clients, from your own team, right? You have people who are just onboarded or going through onboarding. You have employees in the field. You have employees asking about, this may not be for administrators, but connected to HR, right? Connected to that, which we'll have another episode in. How can you remove those 85% where you have to keep answering the same questions? So could you create a digital assistant specifically for whatever the piece is for field? If you have employees in the field, let's say you're a home builder and you have your tradespeople or construction people out, well, instead of them having to text, email, Slack, Teams, whatever, they just have a digital assistant they can ask the specific questions about, and that removes the work immediately too.
And I think really the recording of yourself or of meetings, I think is such a missed opportunity, because if you think about, you've got an executive team meeting and they're developing their strategy and plan for 2025, and maybe you've got a series of meetings, you've got somebody in that room who's taking notes, whether it's on a computer or whether it's written out on pieces of paper. And that is just such an old school way of doing it. Get some kind of a recording device, set it in the middle of the room, record these meetings, these strategy sessions. It could be from an HR standpoint, it could be safety policies, they're having safety issues. Record these safety meetings and then use AI to, take it, transcribe it, summarize it, come back with an action plan. And I think this is something where a lot of people just don't understand what's capable. I've taken notes for years in meetings, and I could tell you that I never, ever go back to my notes. And generally, when I go back to my notes, they're horrible notes, and I don't even know what the hell I've written down, and they make no sense. And so I'm just going off of memory. Well, now we record our meetings. And again, I'm not going to listen to a full recording of a meeting back, but now that I can use AI to summarize it and come back with an action plan and a summary, it's priceless.
When we start talking about recordings, there's so many elements to that too that administrators can use, right? You can, I think, like one element that is super, super underrated, where if your company has a sales team and they do you record your sales calls, well, an administrator can easily set up an automation where, right, you extract what is said in that sales call, but extract it from the perspective of different groups in your company, whether it's a product team, CX team, marketing team, product marketing team, whatever it is. You can extract that, and then we've done this in the past where you do summaries of summaries. So you're extracting not just the information from that specific meeting, but extracting multiple sales calls summarized all at once. So you have real-time information about your customers without having to repeatedly call them. And I think that's like a huge benefit that very, very, very few companies are actually doing.
I think as well, even again, thinking about, executives are busy, admin people are busy, everybody's busy. When you think about even, you get a new product that you're launching, and maybe you get a document that's 50 pages of written content, again, using AI to be able to run it through and summarize that and come back to your executive team, provide a summary of a 50-page document in a matter of a couple of pages, and it's gone through the entire document like a human typically would, and come back with notes. And now you can do that in a fraction of the time.
Yeah.
We've seen this. We've worked with a couple of municipalities, and when you've got council members and we talk about politicians, and there's so many big stacks of paper crossing their desks, there's no way that they could actually read it all and make sense of it all. So, well, now you can take AI and summarize that. And I think that there's so many opportunities in the corporate world for people to save a ton of time. And I mean, we're talking administrators, business office type work, but I think that also applies right up the chain to executives, where they can use these tools for so much efficiency.
Well, I think, when you talk about politicians, like early in my career as working for the federal government, we always had to brief, federal minister on whatever, give them speaking notes and so on. And a lot of that stuff is still being done manually today. I can't understand why. And like for any politician, council, state, provincial, federal, they have to do a lot of like speaking to the public, announcing things. But what they've noticed, we've always spent hours creating these crazy briefing binders, because there's no way one single person can understand all the issues related to one, whatever department they're in, right? Like if you're the minister of transportation, doesn't matter if you're state, federal, or even if you're in a committee transportation meeting, part of a transport committee in council, there's no way you could remember every single issue that's happening. So you have these briefing notes, but what person's actually, has the capacity to read every single page of that briefing note when you have 20 of these briefing notes coming at you every week? So, but if you can have like AI to not just summarize it, but maybe have a digital assistant to ask, hey, what exactly am I talking about today? And that may sound really stupid, but we know a lot of politicians who we have given them the speaking notes, and I guarantee you that politician does not know one thing about what they're announcing. They're just reading it straight off and like kind of getting a gist. So if anyone actually asks on, they have like media lines, but they don't know anything about the project. So, we could have more informed people, our lawmakers, be able to actually ask against it, and have, whether it's text or by voice, they can, hey, what's this project about? What does it actually do? Oh, okay, now I understand, versus having this big briefing binder that's like, I'm not gonna read this.
Two other quick examples. I mean, legal documents. How often do you get legal documents and people are reading through them? And I know we're not replacing lawyers here, but I'm going, we've done it. You and I have done it. You run it through AI and say, are there any things that I should take note of in this legal agreement? How many of us agree to privacy policies on company websites or agreements for insurance policies or whatever it might be, and we just sign? Whoever reads those things, other than those real keen legalese type people? Well, now you can use AI to scan those things. If you're responding to a big RFP on any kind of a project, you're building a skyscraper, or whether you're creating videos or, building a pipeline, use AI to go through these RFPs and summarize it and come back with one of the highlights. And then you can also use AI to help build the draft proposal, the response to it. The opportunities are endless. It's just a matter of trying to identify and get rid of that old school thinking of, I need to do this manually because I've done it this way for so many years.
And I think like we've actually used it too, where like, we've gotten legal, like for example, like I've seen a legal document that's like 20 pages long, and there's people who are like, well, I got to get our lawyers to read it. It's like, sure, you probably still want to do that, but a faster way to, before you engage the lawyer to actually go through it, why don't you let AI scan the entire thing and ask it, hey, are there any red flags that I should be aware of, or things that, hey, point out? And then that's something that you can pass on to the lawyers as well, so they can zoom in on certain things that, especially if your corporate lawyer is very overworked, they have to review this stuff. Maybe they miss something. Well, you can reduce the potential for human error by having just that assistant kind of review that thing for you as well.
One last one here, just, improve task delegation and tracking. And again, with all of these things, being able to actually create an action plan from all of this stuff that you're doing, I think is critical. And I think that's what lacks right now, because, we go back to the meetings, people meet, a lot of people talk, and then you're going, who's doing what? Well, again, I think you can use AI to get more efficiency just from that delegation of tasks, and then following up and making sure people are following through with these tasks they've been delegated.
Well, it's always been like, at a meeting, you assign people something, and you because you're on multiple projects, you forget, especially if you're a manager, but especially if you're like an administrator for a specific group. Well, you want to keep everything moving. But if certain people, because they get busy, it's not their fault, they forget to do certain tasks, AI could help you, hey, identify, hey, you're missing this timeline, or it's one day from this timeline. And a lot of tools like Asana, Trello, Kanban boards, they have starting those AI pieces built in to help you with that. So again, saves you the time from having to chase people down, because I know I'm guilty of it. I've worked with a lot of administrators or creative people, creative directors or creative administrators. They're like, hey, Carl, did you do this specific tasks ago? Oh, right, I forgot. And it's always like, Carl, you're holding up the entire process, but you just forget because you have a whole bunch of stuff. And whoever reads those Asana reminders is like, delete, 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 delete. So yeah, and it can help the people who are, the project managers and sometimes the administrators actually keep everything in the same direction. A couple of questions for our audience is, what repetitive administrative tasks consumes the most time in your organization, and how could AI help? And the second piece is, how can AI improve communication efficiency between administrators and your employees? So maybe this is one thing for administrators. If you're an administrator in your company, one takeaway is try to find, again, a workflow or a process, and try to see if you can automate it 10 to 40%, whether it's scheduling, expense tracking, communications. See if you can do one AI automation or one AI process to help you out.
Learn more about implementing AI in your industry by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode and want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next episode.